Alrighty, here we are again, back at this cursed lathe. So far, I have fixed a whole bunch of mess. So I just rebooted this thing, turned it on, and I finally figured out how to set the tools and stuff like that. So everything I found, all the documentation I found was for version 11 or version 12 of this thing. So this, it's not going to show me what it is, but let's see, maybe it will here. So this is CNC 10, which apparently is a really old version of this software. So there's just not much information out there. Everything else that I've found has been the newer stuff, basically. So I've taken this apart. I've taken this apart. I did figure out all of my tooling that I have now is 5/8 tooling, and eventually figured out that 3/4 inch tooling will fit perfectly in these tool holders. So I've ordered some new tooling for that, make it a little bit easier when I do run stuff in this thing. But this, here we go, tell you what, is what took me forever to figure out. So, say this is my part that I want to turn like that. So eventually this is something I'm wanting to make. It's a Jacobs taper 33 and just a .625 shaft here. And what I'm wanting to do that for, where the heck did I put my, oh there it is for this. So I need a, here it is. This is a 33 Jacobs taper. I want a shaft that will go in here, so basically my tool holder will hold a drill chuck, just so. So it'll actually back it up to this surface so I can put stubby drills and things like that in here, and it's not taking up that much space being way out here, which is what would happen if I used one of these guys. So if you look at how much more room that's taken in my spindle with that other tool holder, it's like right here. So that's what I have been working on. I've got it drawn in, here's the G code. So there's the part, and where's my mouse? I've got a profile, goes through here, a face, which actually I just realized I've got these two. Yeah, let's rearrange this. Yeah, so that's what it's supposed to do. So a face, a profile, and then a parting operation. I'm using tool 1 for the facing op, tool 2 for the profile op, and for the part I'm using tool 5. So tool 1 would come in here, face this, profile it, and then tool 5, way back here, will come in and part the thing off for me. At least that's the general idea. So when I first started messing with this thing, getting the tool offsets was interesting. So I would go through the directions that I found in all of these manuals, and basically I would touch off with tool 1 here, I would skim cut this, measure this, put it in the system, and then touch every tool off and measure the offset. So just kept doing that. And this is the screen. Here, let me do this. So setup, first thing you do is go to your part. You go in here and you say, I'm going to use tool number 1 to touch off on my part. You would jog this over here to this surface, and then you would hit set. And so that's going to tell your controller, my part starts right here, and then you would work back from there. So I'm not going to set that because I already have. Hope I didn't just reset that. But anyway, so after you do the part, you go to tool here. And here I can go to tool orient. And so you can go in here and say, okay, let's just go back to 1. So here's tool 1. This is a right hand turning tool. And this is a turning tool. It is on the outer diameter. I am approaching it from the back. I want the spindle to go forward, and this is approaching from the x-axis, so you see I can turn this like so, and hand of tool is right, vector is 3. So basically, if you look at this little chart right there, that's kind of asking where the tool tip is coming out. So if you look, if you kind of superimpose that chart here, this would be like in line with that 3 that you're seeing right here. So nose radius, to be honest with you, I just guessed at this. I figured I'd fiddle with that later. Turn the coolant off for now. And this is the X offset and the Z offset and all that stuff. So this is honestly where I'm still a little bit confused about this, to be honest with you. But this is the part that kind of broke through and got me where I needed to go. So if you see right here, establish the X diameter, make a skim cut, measure the X diameter, enter the X diameter. So you go in here and you skim this, take a micrometer and measure this. You put the diameter in here, and what I guess the controller does is it figures out that, okay, if this is 1 inch, then this is ½ inch, so it knows, or not ½ inch, but 0. So once you put that diameter in there, it knows where the tool is, it knows the diameter, and it knows where the center line of the spindle is at that point. So what I kept doing is messing with this, and what I would end up with was this one tool would be right, and all of the other tools would be in some goofy place. So you would go into tool orient here, right there, and this is where you tell it what your tools are. So I'm going to ignore that for now. Now I'm going to go to offset library. So I've already gone into tool orient, told it what all those tools are, and then what you do, since I've already set the Z using the part Z thing, I go in here and I jog my tool over. Oh wait, this is X. So say this is tool 2. I would then jog it over. I'm not going to do it, but you get the idea. I would touch that surface with the tool. And then if say this was tool 2, I would go in here and hit measure right here, which would then update this with that coordinate. So now it knows that, well, what it's essentially doing is using the reference tool and then any new tool. So this would be my reference tool here, and then the offsets would be the distance of the tools and the differences there. So if I were to call up tool 3, if you notice where this tool is, so I'm going to sort of hold it here, and see, now you can see that this tool is a little bit further this way and a little bit further up that way. So that would be the offset. So whatever the distance is where this other tool back here was sort of like this, and more like that, I think, then the offset would be the distance from here to here in Z, and from here to here in X. So this is your Z, Z minus goes towards the spindle. Z plus is away from the spindle. This is your X. X minus is towards center line. X positive is away from it. So either way, what I ended up figuring out after I did all of these offsets, so if you read the instructions, once you do your first tool, you go and you do all the other tools, and now those tools know. So if I go in here to MDI, I can go G54, that is my work offset, tool 101, so that is tool 1 in the spindle, and 01 is the offset in my offset page. So now I'm doing G54, tool 101, and I'm going to do X0. So now I'm telling it, hey, I want you to rotate this tool around to here. I want you to move into X0 position, and pretty much, and in the G54 offset. So now if I hit this and hit start, okay, so it has rotated over, and I'm going to move this over so you can see that is basically center line of the spindle. I may have mismeasured that some, but it looks like it's center line. Okay, so now if I go in here, G54, T303, so tool 3, offset 3, X0, enter. It's going to move to the X0 position, pull up tool 3, and again, now you can see that I'm center line. So if I go to, I'm going to jog this out of the way, and I'm going to go G54, tool 303, Z0, and hit enter. Start. I just pulled this out, but my stock was zeroed in, roughly this position. So it's going to go to where my stock originally was. So what I'm going to do is jog this down, pull this over, and tighten that up. Take that out, jog this over. And so if I do this again, G54, T303, Z0, enter, start. See, it's going to be center line with my part. So now if I go to G54, tool 5, offset 5, oops, Z0, let's do X0 first. Now I'm going to hit start here. Okay, so again, you see in the X, I am at the center line of the spindle. I'm going to jog up out of the way, and then I'm going to go G54, tool 505, Z0, enter, and start. And what that should do is take me basically to where I zeroed the tool. So I zeroed the tool on this side of the cutoff tool. So in my CAM software, I've told my software that this is 1/8 of an inch bit, so it knows the thickness of the cutter here. And so if I wanted it to cut here, it's actually going to move 1/8 of an inch past that and cut in, so because it knows the offset there. So essentially it has taken me a week to get to the point where when I put in all that code, it goes where I'm expecting it to go. So it took forever to do that. And what took forever was when I go in here and I go to tool orient, I think, yep. So see this right here, this Z reference, I kept updating. So jog and touch off at the Z face, press F4 to set, or you can enter it. So what I would do is if I was on tool 5, I would jog over to here, and then I would hit F4 here, and it would change this value. But what I missed, and what you probably saw, is this number 1 thing right here. It says load the reference tool. So my reference tool is that tool. Oh, sorry, actually, it's this tool, tool 1. And I kept loading these tools, or this one. So every time I would go in and try to set my tools up, I would set that up. What it's doing is it's going to the reference position right here. So anytime I tell it to go to G54Z 0, it is going to where this tool matches this surface. And what the offsets do, so the offset library here, okay, so you see this 0.8533? Basically what that's going to do is when I say, hey, tool 3 offset 3, I want you, which is this one, to go to Z0, it's going to look at the position of tool number 1, and then it's gonna, in this case, because there's not a negative there, it's going to add the offset to this. So essentially, what that tells me is tool 3 is 0.8533 inches longer than tool 1. And if you look, you can kind of see that. So you can see that tool 1 up here is shorter as far as this plane. So if you put a piece of paper or something here, you can see that this tool sticks out further in this direction than this one does. So when I tell it I want to go to Z0, essentially if I say tool 3 offset 3, it's going to go to tool 3 offset 3, and it's going to add 0.8533 in that direction because it's positive. If it was negative, it would push it further that way. And that's what makes that tool go to the right Z position. So essentially, at first I thought I was going to have to go touch this tool off, touch this tool off, touch this tool off, touch this tool off. Every single time this changed. So if I put in another part and it was, you know, a little bit shorter, say an inch further this way, I was going to have to go in here and go in here and go in here. But essentially what you do is you go in here one time and you touch off, and then you measure that. And then what it does is it automatically knows that the G54 for this should be offset that way to go here. So if I look at, what is that, tool 6 here, it is offset 2.1972 inches in the Z positive direction. So what that tells me is this tip is 2.197 inches longer in that direction than this tip is. I don't know if this makes sense, but a lot of the stuff is intriguing to me on how, you know, these machines work, because I'm used to machines like this where it's all manual, or this where again it's all manual. I'm sitting here and I know, because I can see where this tip is in relation to the tool that I'm working with. I can go in here and I can look at my DRO and I can, you know, move this around, so I know exactly where this is. But with CNC, you have to tell the computer where everything is. So you have to go in here and jog all of this stuff into position and tell it where your stock starts. You have to tell it all of these things. Now, the CAM software that I've been running makes it really easy to figure a lot of this stuff out. So you put your part in, you tell it the operations you want to do, and if you, I don't know if you can see this. See if I go to set up one here, you see the yellow box or whatever. That is what it thinks is the stock. So I've gone in and I've said, hey, my stock is 1 inch 100 thick in diameter, and it's like, you know, 4.5 inches long or whatever. And I actually don't need it to be this long, I just drew it that way. So what I did is I faced the part off, so you can see the tool path here. And then I profiled the part here, and if you notice, I ended the profile back here. And then if you look at the parting operation, it actually has already, it parts off a little forward of where I've done that profile. So then this part will fall off, and then I can use that part, hopefully. So the nice thing about the software is I can go in here and simulate, and you can kind of see how this is going to work. So this is going to come in and face, and it's going to profile, and it's going to keep profiling, and there's basically the part, and now it's going to come in and it's going to part it off. So whoops, if I zoom in here, you'll kind of see what it should have done, and this is all the tool paths here. So now that I know that my Z0 is right here on the face of the part, actually it's a little further ahead, so if let me close this and go back to here, come on, there we go, you'll see that my stock, you know, basically my part is hiding inside of here, and I'm going to kind of come in here and face, because this is just a saw cut surface. If I just went in and profiled it, you'd have this nasty saw cut that looks like that in the front. So what I want to do is I want to cut past this surface, and I want to, you know, face off 1/10 of an inch, I think is what I put in there. So it's going to face that off here, and then it's going to run the profile and then chop the part off. So that is what all of this has been leading up to. I just wanted the stupid thing to make one part. So that was a whole lot of explaining to get to this point. So I'm going to move this part out of the way. So what I was going to do is just tuck this back into the chuck. And I wanted to run, and the first time I've ever run this thing, to where, you know, it'll sort of run in the air. So there's nothing here to cut. If my feeds and speeds are wrong, I'm not going to like grind into the part. I can just watch it sort of come in here and do its profile and cut, and then try to part off, and it'll do it in the air. So if I don't have my feeds and speeds right, which your feeds would be how fast it's feeding around, and your speeds would be the speed of this spindle. So say I'm running the spindle way too fast, or say I'm feeding this in really fast, or whatever, I can run this in the air and leave the part sort of back in that spindle, and it can sit here and do it, and I can kind of watch it and go, ooh boy, that's a little fast, and then I can adjust my feed rates. That's the idea. So if I move this back and I go here, and then I go to graph, tell you what, I'm going to make sure my G54, tool 505, Z0, and start. Okay, so again, it thinks my Z0 is here, so it's expecting this part to be way out here. I just wanted to verify that I didn't accidentally reset this to like over here while I was doing this video. So I'm going to cancel out of that, and I'm going to tool check, which is going to move back to a safe position. So it's moved way back here now. So if I go into graph, this is reading the file that I gave it from Fusion, and this is essentially my part. You can see the tool paths. Everything looks like this should work. I was very happy to just get this far and to get all of these to do exactly what I said. So everything works here. Everything's doing exactly as I expect. When I first got it, you know, the tool would be up here instead of down here pointing. It would be halfway between this position in this position. I took the turret apart, bought a thing off of eBay that kind of gave me an exploded view, and figured out that this was off a spline, and you know, fixed that. And then this thing didn't work at all. I couldn't get it to turn on, to run, to do anything, because there was a fiber optic cable in the back panel back here that was broken. That matches up to back here. Get this off. Come on. There you go. So you see these fiber optic cables right in this area. So there's a dangler right there. There's one of the fiber optic cables, and they plug in right here. I don't have a good way to get the light back here, but like this is the other end of the broken one, and there just happened to be this one right here that they had run a pair instead of a single one. So I just swapped out the broken end with the fixed end, and Bob's your uncle, it works. So either way, got all that fixed. This has been, feels like months, but I think it's only been a month. And I finally got to the point where I thought, okay, now I just need to load a program and hit this button, run it in the air, and then I'll actually make a part. All happy. So here's the program. Everything looks right. So there's job 101.cnc. It knows it's on tool 5. So I should be able to, I'm going to turn the feed rate down a little bit. I should be able to start this. And see, now it's going to draw the part, I think. Oh, come on. Okay, cycle start. So it's going to move over. It's going to go to tool 1. And it's moving. So I'm going to turn this up. Moves into position. And nothing ever happens from here. If you go to the G code here, here's the G code. And if you look up here, it's saying G50 S3000. So that's spindle speed 3000, that's the max. So it's setting, hey, don't go above 3000 RPM. Then G96, spindle speed 656 M3. So what that should say is, hey, turn on the spindle at 656 RPM, I think. And then it moves, and it moves, and it moves, and it moves. And it should keep moving. The spindle should have already turned on, and it should be moving around doing stuff. But it goes to, if you go to the graph, you see this little doodad here. It's not, I don't know why it's not showing it, but maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyway, this is showing the position of the tool, and this should be moving. But it's not doing anything. It just sits here. So the weird thing is, so if I go in here and I turn the spindle to manual and I put it on clockwise and I do this, spindle works. Obviously the spindle works. I can shut it off and go back and turn it to auto. Ideally, I should be able to start my program. It draws that up, and then it should tell me to hit cycle start here shortly. Cycle start, it's going to move back and then move back into position like it's going to cut, and it should start cutting. And the spindle should be rotating, but it's not. So if anybody has any idea what is going on here, please let me know. So one of the things I thought it might be is my post processor. I don't know how to look it up. Maybe I can do this. Nope, I can't. So I should be able to see my G code, and I thought maybe because the G code is coming out of here, maybe it's the post processor, so it's giving me the wrong G code. So I compared it to something that was already in here, and it don't work. It looks like the same stuff. So if I go load, you know, you've got the two programs that I've dumped in here, and then you've got these programs. So this is, I think this actually comes with the software. I can go in here and hit edit. Okay, oh, whoops. Hold on it. There we go. And I can hit F6 instead. It should pull up the editor. Okay, so here's my G-code. This is something that was already on here. Here's all the different tools that it's asking for, and here's a facing op. So if you notice, G96, S500, M3. So that's telling me, hey, turn the spindle on at 500 RPM. I think M3 is turn spindle on. And then it just keeps going through here. Well, for some reason, M3 doesn't appear to turn the freaking spindle on. So here's another S4000. This is limiting the RPMs to 4,000 RPM. So this is, hey, don't go above 4,000 RPM. That's what the G50 means, I believe. And then it starts to move. So it's saying, hey, spindle speed is 650 now. G0, I think, is a rapid. And it's saying, hey, go to, 0.98 in X and 105 in Z. So I've run this program. Shoot, let me see if I can get out of this. Exit. Okay. So if I go in and I say, hey, run pawn.cnc, and I hit start here. I think this is like a chess pawn or something. So now it's asking me to start. It's going to move to the tool change position. Moves to that position. And right now it should be starting the freaking spindle, but it's not. And see, it moves up here, and it's saying it's still moving, but it never gets beyond this. So if I go to the G code, see, it's past where the spindle should be moving, and it just never gets past this operation. So the weird thing is, this is super stupid, but if I move the spindle, watch the, so I'm going to rotate it. That scared the crap out of me. The thing moved. See how as I rotate the spindle, the encoder is moving the X right here. So obviously it's waiting on the spindle to move in order to do its job. Oh shoot, scared the crap out of me every time it does that. So I'm scared this thing's going to turn on with my hand on it. So what I'm doing is kind of a dumb thing to do. So I think what it's doing is the spindle's not starting. So in M3, when it gives it an M3, it's not starting the spindle, I guess. So either way, so update and redneck explanation on how this thing works, at least my understanding of